Okay, so now we've got recording going and doing. I meant to ask y'all if there was anything. Let me unmute. Okay, I had the wrong code. Okay, unmuted. Was there anything that anybody wanted to share going into this big Taurus full supermoon closest to the planet, going into November and December? Is there anything out of the ordinary or not?
I'm just going to put in a rejoinder. Is there anything ordinary anymore?
Not really. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about with this. I don't know how many of y'all had a chance to read any of the astrology things that I sent out this morning really early. I call it this morning because I hadn't had sleep last night, so it's last night for me. But
it was like 4 o'clock or something. Yeah.
It was, and I was just like, I was sitting there, I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't sent the email yet, and I've got to get this out. I feel bad if I don't at least have some stuff for you guys to read earlier. And then, of course,
Jonathan,
Pam.
I'd like to comment on the puzzle pieces, David Clements. I just need to throw that out.
Uh-huh.
That was an amazing piece, and if y'all don't get to listen to very many things, pick that one. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot out there right now, and what's really interesting is everyone's different perspectives on how they are interpreting everything happening. I mean, it's all the same aspects, but I'm sure you probably have read enough of these people by now to notice sometimes there's a vast difference just in basic interpretation of the same aspects that they're all looking at, because most of these are all writing from tropical astrology, the tropical zodiac, and not the sidereal zodiac as opposed to the Vedic astrologers. And all of those things are kind of different. And what's funny, even though they're all perceiving the world and writing and interpreting it from different systems, there can be a case made for every single one of them that are pretty darn accurate in the way that they're interpreting energies. And of course, that's another part of the vastness of what the human experience is here, and it shows the level of the multidimensionality that we're expressing as an energy too. So, okay, well, I guess I'll go ahead and go back to mute, unless anybody has anything else to share. Here we go. Okay. So, so I've already started the recording. So here we are on the Taurus full moon. It's at 13 Taurus. I think that's an interesting thing to notate, because we love 13s. I love 13s. And it creates a very interesting dynamic from a numerological standpoint. And it just happens to be right on my midheaven as I sit here and pull up the chart. That's interesting. So, my midheaven is what's happening for me in the external world. So I guess this full moon is going to, highlight me. I don't know. And my Mars is right next to it. Okay, so we'll see what that looks like. So I don't know how many of you have had a chance to really listen, pretty regularly to Pam Gregory, and then also Stefan Burns. He's a geophysicist that has just kind of really blown up really big since this 3-eye atlas came along. I mean, he's talked about all the comets. He talks about, bigger conjunctions and what's going on in the sky. And he's doing it from a geophysicist, from the astronomy standpoint. So he's also really embracing the astrological meanings, behind everything as well. And that really kind of I think, gives just yet another layer to the astrological understanding of what's happening with the stars and planets out there. Because, I mean, there really is so much that's been happening, and and it's been accelerating. I mean, the whole month of October, I mean, we're now on the 5th of November. We went through all of October, which basically had 3i Atlas going over all the personal planets that I talked about in the last video that I had put up for you guys. Well, it's audio. There's no video to it, but from the last telecall. And actually, I noticed there were 23 views of that, 23 listens to it. So I don't know how many of it, maybe someone's browser was still open and maybe it restarted, a view of it. I don't know how many people are actually listening to the whole part of it, but that may be one of the higher views. Anyway, I mean, 3i Atlas, we've got this interstellar object coming in. No one knows what the heck's going on with it. They're all projecting what they think is this or that, and it depends on what their degree teaches them, whether they're in the scientific, astronomy view of the world, or if they're through the astrological view and where it's at in relationship to the planets and things in the sky. I mean, I think the one thing that everyone agrees on is that it's been a very rare occurrence. And it did come in, again back in May, and it has moved in along the ecliptic plane, which basically means it's moved along our line of sight from the Earth, and it's going along with all of the other orbiting, the plane where most all of our solar system all operates, around the sun. And so that makes it an active player within our personal, transpersonal, the larger group of us as a consciousness. And that really is not a mistake. And October really was a pivotal month with regards to that, because it went across Mars, then just a few days later across Mercury, and then it went across Clotho of Fate, the Tesla asteroid. It went across Haumea. It went across oscillating Lilith, which, as you'll know that I've talked about, that path really is divine feminine in its highest expression, being birthed. When it was with Mercury, it went over the Shapley attractor. That's another one of the large magnetic points in our solar system that really brings cosmic awareness in. And so all that was in Scorpio. As it has moved into Libra, and of course it appears to go backwards. So that to me is taking us into a much more inward journey as far as our cosmic awareness. I mean, I really feel like the 3i Atlas represents cosmic consciousness, and I think that's where a lot of astrologers are, depending on their own soul evolutions. But, I mean, the fact that this, is retrograding now back into Libra, which is all about balance, and so we're having a backward journey with regards to Libra as everything outside of the I am presence. So it's our relationship to anything outside of ourselves, including God. And, where we were at the last moon, on the 20th, 21st of October, it was sitting sextile the galactic center, which, again, cosmic consciousness with the sun, and, just right outside of the oscillating Lilith path. So all of these things added together, really, I think, made a big difference in shifting us individually, but also collectively, because we're all part of the collective. And then as 3i Atlas, ended out October, it met up with Venus, and so that was October. So those are all huge personal aspects for us to go through as individual transitions. Now this 13 Taurus. Actually, let me back up with that a bit. 13 Taurus is opposite of 13 Scorpio, which is where Atlas was at the end of, well, actually that's where it was, at the end of the eclipse window in September. So I think that the fact that this moon in Taurus at 13 being in an opposition point to where 3i Atlas was during that eclipse, it was literally on the second eclipse, it was sitting at 13 degrees of Scorpio. I don't think that's a mistake. That was actually sitting with the semi-square of that new moon in Virgo. So, and again, a semi-square is a challenging aspect, but I mean, I still find that to be more like a growth aspect. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's not like a full square, and it's not like an opposition. Of course, it's not a sextile or a trine, that's more, flowing energies. I do think it created a time at that point where it still created us on the inward journey. And that's the other reason I think this particular moon is very important, because, it's in the opposition to all those, positions in Scorpio where 3i Atlas was. And just a reminder, 3i Atlas at that time, going into the eclipse window, crossed Juno of partnering, it had crossed Vesta, it crossed interpolated Lilith, the regular average Lilith, but also the Narcissus Centaur. And that was right in the eclipse window. So I feel like that what was happening then, cosmic consciousness was meeting narcissism on the planet. And if you look at the way things have played out on a large scale, around the world, you got lots of narcissism playing out in different ways. And I'm not pointing that to any individual person. It can be political parties. It can be every head of government. It's created a lot of falls. And again, Scorpio, just to remind us all, is really it's sex, it's the secrets, it's all the hidden world, and it doesn't have to manifest out in a bad way. But the other thing that was happening too during that second eclipse, 3i Atlas was sitting on the Scorpio world point, on top of oscillating Lilith, basically. And so that's why I think that, we as a collective consciousness, as well as individuals, having oscillating Lilith in Scorpio with 3i Atlas really worked hard to take us into awakening our divine feminine before going into the month of October and accessing all the personal planets. And so as we go now, of course, into November, we're still in Libra. 3i Atlas is going to be in Libra all the way through around the 22nd. It will also be conjunct the supergalactic center. So we're going to get another huge cosmic download, I feel, 19th and 20th, which is basically, just 2 weeks from now. And so, and that new moon is actually going to be where? In Scorpio. And, I talked about this, the last couple of calls, but it's the reason I point this out is because things are going to really become active. There's so much happening in the skies between Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius within this quadrant of the sky, because that's where all the personal planets are. I mean, they're still in Scorpio, but they're moving into Sagittarius within this month. And we've got Mercury going retrograde in the middle of all this. Mercury stations retrograde on the 9th, only 4 days from now. But it's already been stationing, and it's already sitting at that sixth degree of Sagittarius. It's at 5 right now, but Mercury is going to sit at the 6th degree of Sagittarius for 7 days, for an entire week. It goes retrograde in the middle of that time, and it goes backwards over every single personal planet within a let me see, from the 12th to the 24th, basically less than 2 weeks. It's going to cross back over Mars. It's going to cross over Ceto, which is one of the centaurs. I won't go into all that, but I mean, just know it's going over a centaur. It's going to also meet up with the sun when it creates the new moon in Scorpio on the next, that'll be 2 weeks from now in the next moon cycle, and it's right on black moon, or oscillating Lilith. That's not a mistake. The interpolated Lilith is there. The black moon Lilith average is there. The Narcissus centaur is only 2 or 3 degrees away. We're going to have major, and with Mercury retrograde, we're going to have major themes of narcissism, I think, really being blown out. You've got the divine feminine there with oscillating Lilith, and oscillating Lilith is going into the direct motion. All of this is also just 3 or 4 degrees away from that full moon in Scorpio, which was at 22 degrees of Scorpio on May the 12th. So all of these things are going to be really activating secrets, narcissistic stuff. I mean, we've already had, Prince Andrew is no longer Prince Andrew. All these things are stripped away. You're going to continue to see things like that happen. And then just right after, the sun and Mercury, the Mercury retrograde goes over that sun and that moon, it's going to come across retrograding over Venus on the 24th, 25th, before Mercury turns direct then on the 29th of November. So we're going to spend the entire rest of this month of November in a Mercury retrograde. So it's not just communications. Now it starts retrograding in Sagittarius, but by the 19th is when it goes back into Scorpio. So I would say by the 19th and that new moon on the 20th, that's when a lot of stuff is going to, I think, blow open. Now, the other thing, I pointed this out before a little bit, all of this is going to be sextile 3i Atlas. Mercury is just running right along 3i Atlas. So you've got cosmic consciousness playing out with this retrograde. I mean, Mercury retrograde will be running right along 3i Atlas in a sextile all the way from basically when it turns retrograde. It's only like maybe 4 degrees away from it. But it's only a couple degrees away, going between the 12th when it really starts backward motion off of that 6th degree, and it's going to be along with it all the way until after it turns direct, and it's going to come across that sextile, and that won't happen until, let me see, where are we? December 3rd and 4th. So between now and December 3rd and 4th, Mercury retrograde is going to be catching a lot of major internal rewiring, and it's happening on the personal level because it's retrograding over the personal planets, Mars, Sun, and Venus. So this is really hitting us at our core, and the fact it's in Scorpio is really going to be bringing out anything hidden, secrets, all this stuff. The other thing that's happening, Clotho and Atropos conjunct each other. Those are 2 of the 3 fates. They're happening 3 degrees away from the Mercury direct point, and they're right there close to that full moon point of Scorpio. So remember I told y'all earlier this year we're going to be looking at the full moon of Scorpio 22 degrees for months, and then all the way into next year. All these things are active, and it's really hitting through the whole month of November, but really the last 2 weeks, it's just going to blow stuff open, I feel like, is what's going to happen. And the Tesla asteroid is coming up right along close to that, too, with those fates. There's a lot about fated events. You've got, Venus, how we, what we pleasure in the world, what we value in the world. It's going to have to do with money. This moon right now at 13 Taurus is in opposition. Let me see. Mercury goes direct on the 20th degree of Scorpio, so it's really 7 degrees away. But there's still something about the opposition between Taurus and Scorpio that's really playing out. Taurus is about grounding. It's about earth energy. But it really gives a grounding to creation. And the fact that we've got the personal planets in Scorpio, and I'm looking at a big general the whole time period of the month, oppositions really create dynamics that can, I think, blow open anything that needs shifting. So conjunction energy, obviously, is very strong. Opposition is really the next point to that. And so that's why this moon is going to be really, really powerful. Some of you may say, well, why are you talking about Scorpio right now more than this moon, which is in Taurus? It's because all of the action is in Scorpio and Sagittarius. That's where all the movement is, as far as what the personal stuff. And when this moon, is setting it up, because again, full moons are releases. So we're going to be releasing any additional things that we don't need going into new creation. But the fact that the next new moon is happening literally smack dab on a Mercury retrograde, on a direct oscillating Lilith, that's really going to seed cosmic awareness beyond, I think, anything we've had up to this point. Now, back on 3i Atlas, it's still happening in Libra, and it goes through Libra again through like the 22nd. But when that comes in contact with the supergalactic center, that is going to just, I think, activate our DNA and our cells even more. And Andrea Wyman mentioned earlier about all the light hitting the planet, photonic energy. That's one thing. All of these astrologers, all the astronomers, they're talking about how much the sun really is. It is. We're having so many solar flares. We're to X class. The major stuff. It is just. It's blasting us. It's also frying the computer systems. It's frying satellites. It's really creating havoc on what we have created in the external world of form with regards to technologies. And I don't know what that's going to continue to look like, but suffice it to say, I really think it's going to be a very challenging time in some ways for technologies. The other thing that I found was interesting here too, and this is, of course, is Libra again. I've talked about the asteroids. So my last name asteroid and the Carl Jung asteroids are all together, and they're literally on the path of the 3i Atlas from the 9th all the way down through the 14th. So next week, those asteroids are going to be right on 3i Atlas's path, cosmic awareness. The Ison Centaur, which was also a comet before, is also in attendance with that. So I think there's just cosmic awareness. Maki Maki is another one of the dwarf planets that really, I think, is taking us into more ancient, but also much larger awareness as far as creation type mythology. So the other thing that's going to be interesting with this is, while 3i Atlas is sextile, the sextile to it is going to be with all these personal planets over in Scorpio. 3i Atlas at the end of November is going to be sitting on a square to the galactic center. So it's going to move from the conjunction, be sitting on the supergalactic center, and it's going to square the regular galactic center at the end of Virgo by the end of the month. That is going to be, again, sextiling all these planets. So we've got 2 galactic points being activated by this 3i Atlas interstellar object. And it happens between the beginning degrees of Libra and the end degrees of Virgo. That it's also crossing the Libra world point, that's in opposition to the Aries world point. Aries world point is basically going out of the end of the zodiac from Pisces into Aries. It's all creation. This is in opposition to that point, which means it's extremely powerful, and you've got these galactic activations of 3i Atlas on either side coming up at the end of the month. So, again, suffice it to say, November's a lot of energy. Now, all of that's between, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, and it's going to lead up into the December 4th, which is 2 weeks later. It's the full moon in Gemini. And the sun, of course, is in the opposition, creating the moon. So the sun is actually at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. That's another 13. Can't make this stuff up. And that's going to happen, again, not maybe 2 or 3 degrees off of oscillating Lilith, which is going to be in a retrograde, and again, in attendance with every single one of the personal planets, also including Juno this time. At that point, at the end of November, Juno will be meeting up with oscillating Lilith with Mars, right before they do an exact conjunction in the later, about 19 degrees of Sagittarius. So you're going to have action, you're going to have partnering on the cosmic awareness of oscillating Lilith, and you're going to have that moon there at 13. So, again, like I said, everything is just moving really fast. The reason it's moving fast is because the personal planets are all coming into a, what's the word I'm looking for? Convergence. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. So, and I've talked about this in the last few calls, because Mars, Sun, Venus, Juno, they're all coming to a 0 point at the end of this year. And all those energies are really getting you clear individually, but all of us collectively, on who we are, and the fact that all of those personal planets are tighter and tighter on top of each other. Really, it's taking us to our core. So it's no coincidence that we have a Mercury retrograde going backwards, taking us into, again, Mercury's communication. From this standpoint, yes, it's retrograding over all the basic Mercury retrogrades, which is mechanicals, cars, all that stuff. But it's also communication on its most core level with God, whatever you perceive God to be, all that is. And so it's taking us all on a really deep personal journey to get really clear on who we are as we go into this, just tiny, tiny funnel of a convergence at the end of the year. So let me move back over to Taurus, because I want to see what's happening actually at Taurus with the moon, since that's what the call's about, the moon. But again, all the action is over on the other side of it's in opposition to the moon because of what we're doing and what we're going through and dealing with. Let me see here. Yeah, as far as in Taurus, right now there's not a lot happening in Taurus. Eros is retrograding, but it's back in the early part of Taurus, like at 3 degrees right now. And so this moon is actually happening quincunx, which is 150 degrees away from the 3i Atlas path. The Priapus moon perigee, which is basically the opposition point of Lilith, but you can look at it as the divine masculine in its highest expression, is also just come across this quincunx to 3i Atlas. And so we've got the divine masculine and this moon. Priapus is only, it's like 6 degrees away from it, but both of them are going across through Atlas as the quincunx. And so I think all of those are still kind of taking us into quincunxes are kind of more difficult aspects. They're not easy. I mean, it's the opposite of the semi-sextile. And so it's adjustment energy for sure. I mean, but it's not as bad as like a square, I don't think necessarily. But so the point is, there's not a lot happening necessarily around the moon. Yeah. The other thing the astrologers have talked about that's a really big deal is we have been in a grand water trine between. Let me see. What is the water trine? I'm trying to remember. I've had so many things going through my mind lately. What was the grand water trine? I'm trying to remember what they were. Let's see it just that fast it went out of my brain. Anyway, so go read the professional astrologers. So again, I mean, this is really taking us into personal work. Jupiter goes retrograde coming up on the 11th, and it's going to happen at 25 degrees of Cancer. So Cancer is 1, 2, 3. That's trining all of this energy in Scorpio right now. So Jupiter is going to blow that energy up, but it's also, again, going retrograde on this new moon coming up in 2 weeks. So right now it's stationing, and I think it's because Jupiter expands everything it touches, it's really blowing up this personal Mercury retrograde. Well, it will in 2 weeks anyway, because it's not back there yet. But it's really going to, I think, by the time we reach that new moon in 2 weeks, it's going to take the internal journey, and it's going to go exponential. So, and because Jupiter is in Cancer, that's hearth, home, how you nurture yourself and others, and that's the personal level. But then you also have to look at the collective level of Cancer. What does it look like as far as our celestial home, Earth as a home? You know, when you go into the macro view, I think it's going to take all of us on a collective level into a really expansive place of there's no separation between us and Earth and everything happening on Earth. Okay. You're also going to have Uranus going back into Taurus. A lot of the astrologers, always think that usually ends up with shocking events, more Earth tectonic plates, earthquakes, all these kinds of things. And then you put on top of that all the solar flares we're getting and everything else. It's a lot. I would not be shocked to find a lot more discussion with regards to breakdown of technologies. And, of course, every time you have a breakdown, breakdowns happen for us individually and collectively for many reasons. If we have things that are built based on an old false reality, an old timeline, even technologies, if the technologies are not serving us in their highest potentiality, there has to be a shift. The other thing I'll just notate with that, and this affects us on a personal level, for anyone that has an iPhone, iPhone all of a sudden 2 days ago decided that it was going to put out operating system 26. And I'm like, okay, it was just 18. I just did my dad's upgrade, my upgrade, and I was going to do one for my aunt. So I was like, but you're going to jump to 26. I'm like, what's that about? What's that about? So if you look at the symbology of 26, what is 26? It's a double 13. What is the double 13 and 26? It's the double helix and DNA, if you want to project that value onto it. Is that why they chose that number? Not necessarily. When I Googled it and asked for the answer to that question, AI comes up and says that Apple chose it because it represents next year, which is 2026. So, okay, I'll give them that. I still find it coincidence, though, that it's 26, a double 13. Again, if you look at the symbology and the numerology of everything, it really all just it all blends together. But they were talking about how this is such a substantial upgrade. And I went on and I was just reading about some of the comments that people were having regarding it. And they were talking about how it really accelerated their batteries. It was running their phones down. They were having a lot of problems with it. So, again, a lot of these huge upgrades, Apple, any of them put them out, and they create obsolescence for what you're using to make you have to go buy something new. I don't think that's an accident. I think they're really trying to push us into the next generation of technology that's been on the shelf. I mean, again, they make this stuff and it'll be sitting on the shelf for decades sometimes. But I mean, let's say this stuff's been sitting there for 10 years and they're just, it's almost like they can't unwield it fast enough on us. And so that there's going to be these huge technological jumps. But for some people, it's like, I mean, if you just got caught up to where you are now on a current iPhone or any other smartphone technologies or anything else, some of these things may feel shocking. I for one, am not going to pay thousands of more dollars for another iPhone. Mine works currently. I'm not going to upgrade to this 26 operating system. So I invite you, if you are on an iPhone, go do your research on it before you upgrade to 26. If you've already done it, maybe you hopefully didn't have problems. But anyway, the point is this Mercury retrograde is, and the fact that they released this upgrade, right as Mercury stationing retrograde, I don't think is a very smart thing. So we're going to see how that works out for Apple over time. They obviously weren't constructing or consulting an astrologer because I don't see any good aspects with that. So, but we've got all this cosmic consciousness coming about. We've got all these downloads. All these solar flares are coming in. It's breaking apart the old world. Taurus also represents Earth, and it has to do with anything, I think, that grounds us here. And the fact Uranus is hitting it, it's shocking. And Uranus represents lightning. It represents all this light. I mean, lightning. I think it's hitting the planet hard. So, where we've talked about, being in Taurus, it may represent earthquakes, things like that. It also represents light hitting the Earth. It's photonic light coming in, adamantine particles coming in, activating. I know some of the strict scientific world wouldn't even remotely want to hear the word adamantine particle, but oh well. I'm not concerned with what the bulk of people perceive in their own reality. I look at bigger pictures. So, anyway, that's just one example of how these things are going to play out for us in physicality. The other thing that's been really hard, and of course Pam Gregory talked about this in different ones, the airlines, anything going on with air travel, navigation. I mean, we've got this UPS jet that just went down, huge explosion, still burning now in Louisville. I mean, it's awful. There's been more and more planes, more and more issues with air travel, traffic, airplane safety. I mean, it's crazy when you look at the news. It's really reflective of that. And all of those things are coming up for review. And if you look at the technology, we've actually been flying on old technology for a very long time, not just in the commercial world, but also in the military world. And it's because it's been tried and true. Now, there are technological advanced things that are flying in the military world too, but for some reason, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so they've stayed with, I think, a lot of older technologies. They may be having a lot of these breakdowns in, airplanes and things like that because they're really getting ready to roll out replacement technology. Maybe, every time they've done that before, though, new jets don't seem to fare as well. The Airbus, 330, and all of its problems have been grounded. And I don't know. Anyway, I don't think it's going to be just an easy hop, skip, and a jump to our new world. We're going to still have all this breakdown because we're really still straddled between the old and the new reality. And I don't know how long that's going to take to get itself grounded where these new technologies really feel comfortable to people and they're useful without having to have the sky drop out on them. So we're just going to have to see how that works over time. But again, so the main thing with this particular moon, though, because it's a full moon, so releases, and it's happening, opposition in Scorpio with all the personal planets, and it's leading into the next new moon. So I want to then go into, again, this is leading us into a continuing acceleration going into the next month of December. Because, again, all the personal planets are going into they're funneling into convergence. And they really come into convergence in January. So they're all creating this cosmic awakening because they're all going through the oscillating Lilith vortex, as I call it. But they're all going to go into Capricorn. And Capricorn is new structures. It's another Earth sign, and it's going to give, but it's really going to give structure. And all of these personal planets are going to go through the galactic center. I mean, that's not a mistake. 3 Atlas has come out of the galactic center. That's actually where it originated from, and so the process that we're going through, the internal process with this Mercury retrograde, going over all of those, Mercury's going to come back up and meet with all those planets in the new year after it crosses. Well, they will have all crossed into Capricorn, and it's the last one to do it. And it does it with Juno of partnering, literally on the last day. But you can't make this stuff up. So, and again, it's a process. Everything's always a process for all of us. Now, the other thing that I will point out with this, too, as all of these personal planets make their way through the month of December, so we will have gotten activated by, of course, this particular moon in Taurus. This stuff is happening in opposition to it. We're then going to be in the, where'd you go? The other moon. Oh, the new moon in Scorpio, then on the 20th in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, December 4th, will be the Gemini full moon, which will be the opposition, but the sun will be in Sagittarius. So it's going to be, all the personal planets will be squaring 3 Atlas's cosmic consciousness. So that may create a more kind of challenging energy now that we've gone through the Mercury retrograde. Imagine that you're talking to God in a different way. You're perceiving different aspects of yourself as cosmic consciousness, as an aspect of God, the divine, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to go through, on an individual but also collective level. I mean, there's no separation. I mean, the stars are up there as a reflection for everyone on the bigger level. And so all the planets starting with Mars, then Juno, then the Sun, and then Venus. Literally, again, the scope of this is going. Let me see. The square to 3 Atlas is going to be Mars and Juno literally on December 3rd and 4th when that moon in Gemini is happening. It's going to hit the Sun on the 8th. It's going to hit Venus on the 10th and 11th. That's literally down into almost a week-long window. And then a Mercury comes around across it again, and that'll happen on the 18th. So a 2-week window when all 4 personal planets go across the square to 3 Atlas in cosmic consciousness. They all go across the galactic center, and then by the time they get into Capricorn, they're going to be trining the 3i Atlas path. That is the most harmonious energy that you can go into with astrology. Conjunctions can also be harmonious, but they're potent for sure. But as far as flowing energy, trines really are the best. And 3 Atlas is going to start trining, Estrella on the 11th, Vesta on the 12th. It'll go across Pholus, which blows things up, Quorar. It'll cross both my named asteroids. It's going to cross the moon on the 20th of December, and it's going to, come across the sun, and all that's during the winter solstice. So that's really flowing energy of cosmic consciousness happening around Christmas time, and it happens at the beginning of Capricorn. And then, of course, Mercury, think about where you are now, going in Mercury retrograde. By the end of this year, it's going to be in perfect trine to 3 Atlas as far as cosmic consciousness, as far as awareness and communication. And Juno of partnering is right there. And they're doing it on oscillating Lilith, the actual path. So it really is setting us up for a complete reset of consciousness individually and collectively. And, then as we get into January, we actually have the merger of the personal planets, Mars, Venus, and the Sun. And they happen it happens like within a week, or, by the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it also happens on the quincunx to 3 Atlas. So it's going to be an adjusting energy, but they're all going to be there together. And the Mercury's not far behind it, coming right up. So by January, we're really going to have, I think, the true reset, as far as individual and collective consciousness groups. So that, in a nutshell, is why this particular moon, although it is in Taurus, I think is extremely important because of the opposition to what's happening in Scorpio. The personal reset for all of us, that's happening on the personal planet levels. And it's, again, in Scorpio, I really think it's going to be a complete disintegration of the old, especially the narcissistic individuals with the Narcissus Centaur here, basically at that 22-degree Scorpio. 22 is a master number. My Neptune is right there at 24 and 25 degrees, right on the moon next 2 weeks. I don't know what that's going to look like for me. That should be interesting. The oscillating Lilith path is there. It's also in the bottom of my chart, the Imam Coeli, which is basically, between the 3rd and 4th houses. But that's how you see yourself, family and home and all these things. And it's the Scorpio world point. So all these things have crossed the Scorpio world point between the end of October going into November. And actually Mercury going direct isn't far from the Scorpio world point. Matter of fact, Clotho and Atropos, the fates, are actually on the Scorpio world point, like at 26 or the 16th degree. So I think by the end of November, you're going to have all this faded, like, awakening, faded lies that are falling apart. But basically, it's the false illusion of reality completely going through disintegration is what I perceive it to be. But it's happening on the personal level first, because of the Mercury retrograde going over all the personal planets. And it finishes that in Scorpio on that moon in 2 weeks. That's why I think this moon leading up to that is really just, it's powerful. There's some challenges with it depending on the astrologers, and go read each one and take their wonderful wisdom because they do impart great wisdom with these things. So for each of you individually listening, to this particular call, go in and kind of look to see where you think things are shifting for you. What is your new dream? What do you think is important for where you want to go, what you want to do, what do you want to create? And just sit with it. And here's the deal with this. There's nothing to do. I mean, you can. I mean, if you're deeply heartfully, invested into, where you are in your own awareness, you're grounded in your own soul progression with regards to your family, your friends, people you work with, whatever. I mean, if you're in a place where you can really create the new beginning, I would advise holding off on it, mainly because of Mercury in retrograde. I would not, but we're not in a really good place, I don't think, to create the new beginnings. And most astrologers would say that, Jupiter's about to go retrograde, which means it won't go direct until, I forget when it goes. Somewhere next spring, I guess. Actually, let me go see. I'm curious now that I said that. I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know when Jupiter goes direct. Because Jupiter going direct is going to affect, expansion. Okay, so that's in Cancer. Come back over here. This computer's going slow on me. Okay, so Jupiter's going to go retrograde on the 11th, which is basically less than a week from now. And it's going to go retrograde, backward. So it's moving in Cancer. So if you've got things in Cancer, you're being affected with the Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter goes direct, on the 11th of March. Yeah, that's what I thought, spring. So that's going to be right after the eclipse window. The eclipse window is from February the 17th to March the 3rd. That's also going to be the time when 3i Atlas supposedly leaves our solar system and goes back toward the Sirius star system, and it's going to do it as Jupiter goes direct. I've mentioned that before. And that's right there at 13 of Cancer. There's another 13. You can't make these things up. So all of this is tied to the next eclipse series. I've talked about that before, the fact that Jupiter's right there. So I think we really have to wait until the next eclipse series before everything is moving forward. You're going to have Neptune going back direct, I think, at the end of January. Saturn goes direct right before the eclipse window. And, of course, that's, going from Pisces back into Aries. And I've talked about, Saturn being structure, Neptune's the dream. They're back in Pisces finishing things up. They do not really be able to move forward with the new dream and creation until we get right before the eclipse window next spring. Saturn does it on the 13th of February. The eclipse is February the 17th. And then you have the Neptune-Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees 44 minutes of Aries, and that happens on the 20th. So it's the day, 3 days after the actual first eclipse. And interestingly enough with that, I've just noticed this, Mercury will be stationing retrograde in the middle of the eclipse window next spring. It will go retrograde on the 23rd of February in the middle of the eclipse window, and it does it at the end of Pisces. So, again, it's far out, but it's kind of good to understand the energy and where things are going to be going to and how the things are tied together. But the new dream won't be really grounding until that eclipse window next February going into November or March. So it doesn't mean that you can't still seed things, know where you're going, and have initial creation to your energy of stuff now. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come into the world of form until then. And it's going to be a lot of fire energy. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an easy birth. Aries is birthing energy, but it's also fire. And when you take Neptune, which also can be delusion, but if you're in the higher form of expression, then I think you're going to be okay. As you look at the external world, though, and I can't say this enough to you, do not attach to what you see in the external world of form. And partly because we're going through this retrograde on a collective level, it's unearthing secrets. It's blowing apart all of the way that our current reality functions in the old world. And I've said this before, it's happening on the atomic and subatomic levels. I also think this is going to change the way scientists, if you look at traditional scientists, I think it's going to change the way that they perceive human expression. I think we're going to go way deeper as far as the way of how we understand ourselves on cosmic consciousness, to have an awareness how we are built on the micronic level. I think that we're going to be taken so far in to our cores, individually and collectively, that we'll be able to express that in the next level of micro-languaging. And we've already been talking about nanoparticles for a long time. And I think we're going to go into the next level, even beyond nano. I mean, I don't know what that is. I've not done that type of research, but the energy would suggest to us we're going to go in to the deepest minutia of our own individual and cosmic awareness. So we're going to see how that plays out. But again, that won't be, until, I don't think it'll be really seeded, and grounded until next spring. So, yeah, I never know where I'm going to go with these calls, and there we are. So I hope that has helped, I guess, give you sort of an idea. Oh, we're up to 15 people. Oh, good. I hadn't looked on the server. We always have 2 or 3 more that come in a little later when they can. So, yeah. Again, I hope, that each of you are in a good place, where you're at in your own worlds. I do know we've still got so much happening. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing I told you I was going to go into a bit. When we start talking about politics, and of course, okay, so yesterday we have got this in the political world, in the United States arena. We've had new elections. We've got all this Democratic, shift and what have you. So energy always goes back and forth. It has to swing from one end of the pendulum to another. And y'all know that, I've said I've made no mistake, or no, not mistake, but I've made no secret of what I feel like is happening in the world. I think there are larger entities that run everything. I think that they put in who they want to, so that they can control the collective reaction to any given set of circumstances. And they do this to maximize the fear, the collective fear that a group of people have. And they do it in every single country. And so I think they've been, allowing the Republicans and the Trump sides and whatever in this particular country to have one way. They do it in the UK. They do it in every country. But so now the pendulum has swung the other way, and you get that group that has some hope. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to reverse the tides of this. And so I'm not political at all. But politics was this thing that was created to keep people in separation. In the deepest truth, a government should represent all people. All people should be created equal. There really aren't two sides. When they created two sides, they created the division. And this should be politics 101. It should be psychology 101. When you create divisive ideology, then you got people fighting each other, and they're not going to be fighting whoever's running a country, and it's the people at the top. And the people at the top, which are, in this country, senators, representatives, and of course the lobbyists. But you got the big business people, controlling all of that, manipulating the legal system that supports them, a system which makes them a lot of money, and that's never changed. It happens in every country that way. But what has happened, and if you really look at this, just heartfully observe, we've got people that are so deeply immersed in their own ideology, and they're defending the ideology to the point where they project a hatred onto other groups. I'm not saying you can either like or dislike a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden, or again, it doesn't matter whoever's in the party. The deal is, what is your reaction? If you are in reaction, this can be at any you. It doesn't matter who's out there listening. If you are in reaction and you have a hatred, if you say, "Oh, I hate this person," the hatred's yours. It's not the other person. This is the next level of soul growth we have to go through individually and collectively as groups of consciousness, no matter what country we're in, no matter where you're listening at. It could be in China, it could be in Soviet Union, Europe, it doesn't matter. If you are holding an anger or resentment towards something or someone outside of you, that's yours. That is an unprocessed something that is inside of you. You're in reaction. You're doing exactly what they've conditioned you to do, to be in reaction. You do not want to be in reaction. You do want to be deeply immersed and embodied in your own heart and soul, deeply immersed with the oneness of all that is, God, Mother, Father, God, however you perceive all that. You want to be deeply, heartfully immersed in the oneness. Then at that point, you can be heartfully engaged if your soul draws you to create something positive in the world that moves away from the polarity of the systems that are currently there. And here's the challenge with this. You're not going to do anything that's going to change the current systems. Current systems are the way they are. They've been built that way on purpose. They were purposely constructed to create the division. We have to create something completely new. And what is that new? It's just oneness. Basically, every single human on the planet belongs to the human race. They're Republican or Democrat or the I forget the parties in England or the parties over. It doesn't matter. Who are you beyond a political party? That's where we're going. That's the nature of these huge evolutionary movements we're going through. That's what 3i Atlas is creating as far as cosmic consciousness and awareness. I do think people are waking up to get beyond the stuff. At some point, people are going to become to a place where they can't feel hatred for their neighbor. They can't feel, this bitterness for their family. You can't stay in a place of distortion. And all of this stuff that's projected onto us is a distorted reality. What's going to happen is we're all going to wake up individually. We're going to see each other at the core of who we are, beyond all those things that separate us. The gender identifications, the national, heritages, the languaging, the financial haves or have-nots, the educational haves or have-nots. At the end of the day, we're going to see soul to soul. And we won't see all of this other. As a matter of fact, it's all going to fall away. It's all imploding on itself. If we stay out of the way, the old world is imploding on itself. Again, what does that look like in the astrology? Well, I've just told you. All of these personal planets are coming over the Narcissus centaur, narcissism. They're all in Scorpio. All of the dark, dank, the sexual secrets, the manipulation, the lies, the blackmail, all of that's being activated on a personal level with the personal planets. Right now, that's what these moons are all doing. This moon in Taurus, the sun is over in Scorpio, creating the opposition to this moon. It's at 13 degrees. 13 is Christ consciousness. The next one is happening. It's going to be in Scorpio, which means that, and that's a new moon. So the sun is meeting and creating the moon in Scorpio. Both of those lights are in Scorpio. That's why that moon is going to be really intense. It's also, happening right before Mercury goes direct. Mercury retrograde is in that moon in 2 weeks. This could not be a more perfect scenario of taking people to their core, because all the personal planets are in Scorpio. They're all involved with cosmic consciousness of oscillating black moon Lilith, which is the highest expression of the divine feminine, and they're all being aspected along with the sextile to 3i Atlas, which is this cosmic whatever it is. And again, this thing is here to awaken us, and it stays with us all the way through this next eclipse window. It doesn't leave our solar system, assuming it leaves. And I'm just going on the trajectory of one image that I saw put through the sky, through the zodiac. But again, I've also looked at another individual's ephemeris, which gives the placements, and her placements are almost exactly on where my guesstimate was. So I think I'm pretty accurate with it. So we're going to see how this plays out. But, so for the political world, if you are in a party, one way or the other, if you're going into the beliefs of that particular party, the only thing I would invite you to do is this. And we always like to look at things as, well, I feel like my way is the right way, your way is the wrong way. Again, it's conditioned polarity. That doesn't exist. Every person's soul is on evolution, whether they choose to go get pregnant and go have abortions, whether they choose to. We can't, at some point, regulate what everyone else is going to do or not do. You can't regulate whether or not they're going to be responsible adults and go out and get jobs. You can't. And we're already in a place where, and here's the other part to this, they have purposely created an inflationary space where people can't live and function. That's done on purpose. It's by design, because it creates the agitation. It activates the fear. It really puts people in fight or flight mode. And for people that can't already make it anyway, it's going to take whatever they're feeling and make it exponentially feel like it's worse. They're going to feel like they're so upside down in the world they can't function. That's by design. It's done on purpose. It's always been this way, but it's being accelerated now. And so you're going to find a lot of people in deep fight or flight while they're also going through these big personal, internal journeys this month with Mercury going retrograde with personal planets. That's not a mistake. And mankind is not affecting the planet orbits, and they're not affecting the planet movements. So that's celestial. So that's something beyond us. I mean, unless somebody wants to show me where that mankind is controlling that. I mean, we control weather and everything else. Who knows? But at the end of the day, all of what this is doing is allowing for deeper disintegration of our false perception of reality, or our perception of the false world, so that all falls away. What used to give it structure, it doesn't exist anymore as a harmonic. The harmonic universe of our frequency is shifting and changing in such a way where none of that is sustainable on the atomic and subatomic levels anymore. And part of that is all the light, all of the solar flares that are coming off the sun. But we're also getting all this cosmic consciousness coming from through our atlas. Again, that is not a mistake, that it's right on the ecliptic plane in the middle of the orbit of all of our personal planets. That's not happened with a comet before. And they're saying it's not acting like a comet. Again, Stefan Burns, really, really, I think, intelligent person that's offering great perspective on how this is all playing out. It's also not a coincidence that supposedly NASA is shut down. I mean, during one of the most, interesting events where you've got a cosmic, comet, whatever they want to call it, coming in here, and NASA can't talk about it because it's shut down. That's really interesting. Again, there's no coincidence in this. It was perfectly timed on purpose. I know, I'm so conspiracy theory, huh? Well, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's true. I don't believe in coincidences, as most of you know. So, anyway, all right. But that was the thing I wanted to go into, was just as you observe the world of form change out there. Yeah, we've had some elections. Don't attach to the elections. Don't attach to parties. I mean, if you're in a Democratic Party or Republican Party, or I don't care what party you're in. The main thing I care about is that you're in the human party. So you have to look beyond politics. And I think most everybody that's going to listen to this call is in the deepest heart beyond the politics. It doesn't mean that you're not still going to be brought into the shiftiness of it. And yes, there's going to be parts of the Democratic Party that has some nice, things to say. There's some things in the Republican Party that seems pretty solid to me too. But we don't want to be in the separation, because it always says that there's got to be winners and losers. That's not true. In the deepest sense, you're human, and then we have to go in and ascertain for ourselves what is the deepest capacity of our humanity to go in and work with people soul to soul. And until we get to that place, I mean, I know we're getting there. I mean, it's already happening more and more. But your family and your friends and people that you're in contact with every single day really may not be in that. Don't let people bait you. Don't let them pull you into the trauma dramas. Don't get caught up and sucked into the distortions. It really doesn't serve us. Not on the core level of where we are and what we're becoming. And that's the main thing. Continue to stay with the birth of who you are, what you know to be true. There's so much more that's happening in our world beyond all of that other stuff. And the other thing, we don't think about this a lot too, is they talk about how everything is just, it's not real. Everything is a projected reality and all these other things. And well, if that's true, if we're making it up as we go along, what is true? If everything is a projection, and I believe it to be, if we're all participating in the projection, if we release the old false projections, then we are shifting the external world. And I do think that's true. Because if we're really grounded in the in our own embodiment, in the what am I thinking of here? Oh, the morphogenetic field, as Rupert Sheldrake talks about, then we are very active, in morphing the world just through our own intention. And I think, this is one thing Pam Gregory talks about. I mean, a lot of them are talking about it. It's not just her. I mean, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, I mean, they all talk about, as you put it out, believe it, feel it, so it is. Part of that's the Abraham Hicks positive thinking, but a lot of their stuff kind of misses the mark a bit, because if you yes, you are creating reality in that however you feel. If you're thinking more positive, yes, you're going to create that, but you still have the underbelly of your own genetic and ancestral inheritance. And if you don't deal with that, if you don't own it, if you don't continually work with that part of yourself, you can't go into denial of any aspect of yourself and who you are as an expression. So, that's kind of the other part to that. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and go into the deep healing meditational part. And so if you haven't already gotten in your easy however you like to go into do the deep work, then get still and go in, and we're just going to go into some deep stillness. And of course, we're already almost approaching 10:30 for people on the East Coast, and I know we've got at least one or two listeners on the East Coast. They may not stay as long, but as long as you can keep the phone next to your ear and stay in with us, you're welcome to stay in the meditative state. Either way, you're already in the zone. Everything's an energy, and so your soul is already connected with us as a group consciousness. So even if you decide to go off to La La Land to go to sleep, you'll still be getting, you're still participating on the conscious and unconscious level as far as the healing work goes. So I had to plug the phone in here. Yeah, just get really still and just soften your breath and just place your awareness in every little single nook and cranny of your physicality, and go into complete owning of your 4-body system, well within the 5th. Go all the way into the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects, and then go all the way into the etheric blueprint. And we're going to just continually reactivate the very core of the immaculate part of who we are, and continually heal and release distortion. So now that you've gone really deeply into the very core of who you are, let's articulate really deep shifts of healing that we want to occur. As we've done with so many other calls, let us call in for the assistance of the entire cosmic realm. We call in Mother, Father, God. We call in the entire archangelic kingdom. We call in every ascended master through infinite presence. We call in the entire mighty Elohim builders of form. We call in the entire elemental systems and groups and kingdoms. We then call in Saint Germain and the Violet Flame. We call in the Diamond Christ Light and the 12th Golden Ray. And we ask for assistance in shifting every single nanoparticle and micron of any distorted thought form, every distorted creation, everything that was not in divine, perfect awareness throughout all of our many lifetimes that we've been continually reincarnating into this world of form. So we call in the totality of every expression that we've ever been throughout all the history of mankind since its inception. And we can ask for complete transformation and transmutation of any and all distortions. We can ask it on behalf of ourselves and of every other man, woman, and child on the planet according to their own I Am presence and their own sacred contracts of their own genetic and ancestral inheritance in which they come here to clear and work through. Of course, we can't clear anything that someone's soul is under contract to go through and work through and clear on behalf of themselves, but we can clear anything that Spirit and Mother, Father, God would deem appropriate that we can do on behalf of another soul. And for ourselves, we can ask that this go into all the aspects of our emotional expression, the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, as well as the physical, and all realign back to the pristine atom cadmium body and the original etheric blueprint. We ask that we shift for all subsequent timelines, all parallel realities, every aspect of ourselves operating throughout the whole time-space continuum. And we ask for it to clear on the micronic level the very core of the atomic and subatomic structures that make us up. We ask that it clear every aspect of our bodies all the way down to the skeletal system, the muscular system, the lymphatic system, the circulatory system, the nervous system, all of the blood that carries all of the trauma for lifetimes. We can ask that all of that be cleared. All of the organs that have carried and processed all of the energy, whether it's things we've eaten, to things we have felt, things that were unprocessed, on an emotional level, on a mental level. We can ask that we are cleared completely back to pristine awareness, to the capacity of our soul to go back to that space. To go into complete renewal with this Taurus full moon, which is release. And it's all in opposition to all of the things scorpionic that represents us on an individual and collective level. To really empty us out for creating in the new moon in Scorpio in 2 weeks. We can absolutely ask and request and demand through our own I Am presence that we have the grace of Mother, Father, God to go into our highest expression and clearing and transmutation that is possible for each of our soul journeys and soul progression at this particular moment of time. We can also request for the totality of any and all soul retrieval of any aspect of ourselves that have been left floating out in this universe or any of the other son, daughter, and mother, father universes. All the way out through infinite creation and expression. These are all the aspects that most humans don't dare take themselves into or even have any inquiry about, much less the capacity to go into contemplation of clearing any of it. Imagine if every human would go in and sit in deep meditation to go in and clear themselves on this particular level. Okay, everyone, you're welcome to stay in the energy. I'll leave it on. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.